In this series. Yes, hello, welcome and to another program in the series, Addiction and Recovery. I'm your host, Ram Naresh Dwarika. Again, reminding you that this program is being recorded and will be posted on Facebook and YouTube soon at the end of the program. And it will also be repeated on radio and TV Jagriti at 10 p.m. tonight. So those of you who are unable to stay with the program this morning, you can come back to it later on or listen to it on radio and TV tonight. This morning, I want to speak about a very interesting topic. Um, did you know that what happens to us in childhood, especially the painful stuff, can shape our risk for addiction years later? In today's episode of Addiction and Recovery, I will be talking about how early trauma can leave deep wounds and how many turn to drugs just to survive pain. This is a very interesting topic that a lot of people don't pay attention to. And I can tell you that because I have worked in this field for so many years. And there's a feeling out there once the person put down the glass, stop drinking, the problem is solved because everybody, even the person who is addicted, they think and they believe that only since they start using the drugs, all the problems escalated and started and so on. Now, that it might appear so, but there would have been, if I've been listening to a lot of people in recovery now saying that, they were alcoholics, they had all the symptoms even long before from early childhood. And the research is showing more clearly now, that early childhood trauma although it is not the direct cause of drug addiction, but it sets the stage and all the preconditions that could lead a person later on to drug addiction. Now, what is this early childhood trauma I'm talking about? Trauma isn't just physical abuse. It includes emotional neglect, losing a parent, witnessing violence, or growing up around addiction, where we know that the popular saying about children learn what they live. This is what they see. This is what their world. That is what they believe their world is about. What they see happening around them, and I have often referred to that on this program. You know, now when these things happen in childhood, it can change the way the brain develops and how a person cope with stress and emotion later on in life. Now we know about there's a tons of research now coming out that shows, that the brain is not properly developed until sometime way into the 20s. So for children who have started using drugs early, like marijuana and all of that, there's enough evidence now that shows how this interferes with normal brain development and so on. But not only the actual use of drug can affect the development of the brain. People who faced early trauma are more likely to use drugs not to get high, but to numb pain, quiet anxiety, or escape disturbing memories. And this is called self medication. And while it works temporarily, it often leads to addiction. So that we are going into a world every day. If you look at the news, I was looking at the news before I came on here, and everywhere you look in the world, there's conflict. There's enough information on the news these days to generate so much fear in the minds of even adults, experienced people like myself. And our children are facing these threats in the school violence, in the fear of being bullying. There's the bullying online, and that's a whole topic. I have my granddaughter who is visiting from Florida, spending some time with me, and I had a beautiful conversation with her this morning, and we were looking at the the nature of socialization now, and I was comparing it to when I was growing up as a child. You know, I in my childhood, in growing up, we'd get up in the morning, and everyone had their roles and responsibilities that was understood. The boys would go out and tend to the animals and cut the grass and outside of the house jobs, work and so on. And the girls will have their hands full, home to sweep, clean, prepare things for cooking and all of that. And I can speak about myself, we had animals. I would have, my role was, and we understood in our household, you had to feed the animals before you had breakfast because my grandfather and great grandfather lived in the same house, and they will tell you, look, these animals are tied. They can't go get it for themselves. You have to go. So we have to go clean the pens, put new bedding, put grass, put water. The mules had to get molasses in their water. We knew all of this, and all the animals who were in the pen and so on, tied near the house, we have to carry them out now into the fields, into the backyard, and tie them there, and so that they can feed. And then there were animals that were far away from home that we had to go and attend, make sure they got water, make sure they were tied properly. And these led to not only taking an ability to take responsibility in early childhood, but also helped me in retrospect now to realize that I gained so much experience, so many skills, understanding about caring for inanimate objects and for animals that don't say thank you and please. It takes a lot more out of you to really take, and if you could take care of plants and animals, you are much more likely to be more efficient and able to take care of human beings and yourself. So, coming back to our topic, children who now not only are exposed to trauma in early childhood, but they are also looking at the parents around them, and they are seeing that the people of the previous generation, those parents who would have been children of the previous generation, who were also exposed to trauma because of pathological parenting, now passing on the same thing to their own children. And hence, the saying in psychology is that pathology breeds pathology. And I'm speaking about this because every one of you listening to this program this morning is at a vantage point where you can break that cycle of addiction by deliberately deciding to change the way you have been relating to your children, the example that you have been providing for them, this whole issue of not enabling them to become addicted later on in life. Now, studies show people with 4 or more childhood traumas are up to 10 times more likely to become addicted. 2 out of 3 people in drug treatment report significant trauma in their past. And I have worked in the field and I can tell you that. Now, while I say that, I don't want to hand alcoholics and drug addicts a ready-made excuse for their condition, because they're quick to jump to the fact that, look, it wasn't my fault, because of what I was exposed to, that is, and while that might be a predisposing factor, once you become aware of it, now it becomes your responsibility to do something about it. And I want to let you know this morning that you are not broken. You are not in any way deficient. You can do something about it to change your life situation and the life of your children. Because if you keep drinking and using drugs, you will not have the moral authority to tell your child that they should not drink or use drugs. And so even those of us who taking a casual drink, we have to be mindful. While we may have control, but we are socializing our children. We have the medicine cabinet there, and we have our own bar in the house now, and our children are looking. What we do, we taking that drink before in the evening, the nightcap, and whenever there's a problem, we're reaching to the medicine cabinet for a tranquilizer or a sleeping pill. Our children are not foolish. They're looking at all of these things, and they have access to more information than we ever had in our formative years. They can easily go on the internet and research things and find out, what is available and what is in trend and what is, fashionable. And I want to let you know that, but healing is possible. The good news is that there's a lot of modalities that could be used. There's trauma-informed therapy support groups. There's also safe relationships that can help people recover from both addiction and the pain that caused it as well. And of course, you have counseling, psychotherapy, and this is my profession generally. I see people daily. And while addiction and drug use may be the presenting problem, sometimes there are underlying issues that predispose and perpetuate the drug use by causing the person to what we say self-medicate. Once a person is self-medicating with addictive substances, drugs, whether it be sleeping pills, alcohol, cocaine, marijuana, then it is several times more difficult for that person to stop. Although they realize the drug is causing a lot of damage, they need additional help. So I know we have to take a pause there because there's the station has to earn its revenues as well. So we take a pause there, and when we come back, we look more into this whole question of trauma, the hidden link. I like to say it's the hidden link to drug addiction, and help our brothers and sisters out there listening to really pay attention to this, because this is why putting down the glass will not be sufficient. Abstaining from that first drink one day at a time is a formula, but that will not sustain you. And this is all the more reason people in recovery need to go to their support groups like Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, and all of those self-help groups that have become available to us. So I will pause there, and when we come back, we will continue this discussion this morning.